President Donald Trump on Sunday warned Russia that he may send Ukraine long-range Tomahawk missiles if Moscow doesn't settle its war there soon, suggesting that he could be ready to increase the pressure on Vladimir Putin's government using a key weapon system. "I might say, look, if this war is not going to get settled, I'm going to send them Tomahawks," Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One as he flew to Israel. The Tomahawk is an incredible weapon, very offensive weapon. And honestly, Russia does not need that. According to Associated Press, Trump said, "I might tell them that if the war is not settled, that we may very well." He added, "We may not, but we may do it. I think it's appropriate to bring up." His comments came after Trump spoke by phone earlier Sunday with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and Trump said he mentioned possibly sending Tomahawks during that conversation. Do they want to have Tomahawks going in that direction? "I don't think so," Trump said of Russia. "I think I might speak to Russia about that." He added that Tomahawks are a new step of aggression. His suggestions followed Russia having attacked Ukraine's power grid overnight, part of an ongoing campaign to cripple Ukrainian energy infrastructure before winter. Moscow also expressed extreme concern over the US potentially providing Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. Putin himself has previously suggested that the United States supplying long-range missiles to Ukraine will seriously damage relations between Moscow and Washington. For his part, Zelensky described his latest call with Trump as very productive, and said the pair had discussed strengthening Ukraine's air defense, resilience, and long-range capabilities, along with details related to the energy sector. Trump in recent weeks has taken a notably tougher tact with Putin, after the Russian leader has declined to engage in direct talks with Zelensky about easing fighting. Last month, Trump announced that he now believes Ukraine could win back all the territory lost to Russia, a dramatic shift from the Republicans' repeated calls for Kiev to make concessions to end Russia's war in Ukraine. But the US president, at least so far, has resisted Zelensky's calls for Tomahawks. The weapon system would allow Ukraine to strike deeper into Russian territory and put the sort of pressure on Putin that Zelensky argues is needed to get the Russians to seriously engage in peace talks. Trump said aboard Air Force One of the war, "I really think Putin would look great if he got this settled, and that it's not going to be good for him if not."
So we'll see. Well, I don't know. I might have to speak to Russia, to be honest with you, about Tomahawks. Do they want to have Tomahawks going in their direction? I don't think so. I think I might speak to Russia about that, in all fairness. I told that to President Zelensky, because Tomahawks are a new step of aggression. Right? You understand that very well.
Are you saying that you will speak to Putin first about Tomahawks?
I might talk to him. I might say, look, if this war's not going to get settled, I'm going to send them Tomahawks. I may say that. The Tomahawk is an incredible weapon, very offensive weapon. And honestly, Russia does not need that. They don't need that. Yeah, I might tell them that if the war is not settled, that we may very well do it. We may not, but we may do it. I think it's appropriate to bring up. Yeah. I want to see the war settled. I really think that President Putin would look great if he got this settled. And I think he's going to settle it, but we're going to see.
The Kremlin regime is trying to convince Russians that they are at war with all of NATO in order to maintain the myth of a victorious army, said Russian political scientist Dmitry Oreshkin. "We've lost 1 million men, thousands of tanks, hundreds of aircraft. The Black Sea Fleet, which is afraid to leave Novorossiysk and has already left Sevastopol. And what about NATO's losses? Well, NATO hasn't arrived yet. Where are the regular NATO units? Where are the NATO planes with their NATO pilots? None of that is there. Putin is at war with Ukraine and he can't defeat it," he said. According to Oreshkin, if you critically evaluate everything Putin says, it becomes obvious that this man is simply insane. Putin's regime wasn't always what it is today, and it was built slowly over time, with rights and opportunities gradually being stripped away here and there and gradually expanded, the political scientist said. He also noted that the sanctions have seriously shaken Russia. The expert does not exclude that the sanctions and the war in Ukraine will cause Russians to rebel against Putin, as living conditions in the country are becoming increasingly difficult. 3.5 years after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, with fighting at a stalemate and the US-led peace process stalled, Kiev's allies are once again talking about renewing economic pressure on Moscow. The goal is to make the war so expensive that the Kremlin is forced to change course, CNN reports. Despite 18 EU sanctions packages and dozens of measures from the US, UK and other countries, the Russian economy remains vibrant. However, cracks are becoming increasingly visible. Growth is slowing to 1%. Inflation is reaching 7% and the key rate remains at a painful 17%. The Kremlin's oil and gas revenues are declining and the budget deficit is growing. Yet, Russia plans to maintain military spending at 4 times its pre-war level by raising VAT from 20% to 22%. This decision shows that the Kremlin is preparing for a long-term conflict, explains Alexandra Prokopenko of the Carnegie Center. Experts are convinced that the time has come not just for more sanctions, but for more reasonable ones. Timothy Ash of Chatham House proposes introducing a 20 to 30% secondary tariff on Russian exports, with the proceeds being used to support Ukraine. The EU, for its part, is considering a €140 billion loan for Kyiv, financed by frozen Russian assets. This would send a powerful signal to Moscow that Ukraine is funded and prepared to fight for a long time, says Ash. Another analyst, Alexander Kolyander of the Center for European Policy Analysis, proposes another approach, encouraging the emigration of skilled workers from Russia. This, he believes, will deepen the labor crisis and create additional pressure on the Russian economy.